from the rest of an image to protect it from editing. For instance, say you have a picture of a vase on a table with flowers behind it, but you wanted to blur and fade the flowers a bit so that the vase stood out more. You could easily do this by masking the vase. In fact, if the vase is isolated, you could do just about anything to the table and flowers, from adjusting the hue or saturation to adding watercolor effects without affecting the vase. Since masks are treated like grayscale images in Photoshop, you can edit them just like you would any other grayscale image. You can add effects and filters, paint them, draw them in, and so forth. So let's talk about layer and vector masks. As just stated, masks hide portions of a layer and reveal portions of layers below it. There are two different types of masks that you can create in CS6. A layer mask is a resolution-dependent bitmap image. You edit these layers with paint or selection tools. A vector mask is resolution-independent. You can create vector masks with the pen or shape tool. Both types of masks can be edited without losing the pixels that they hide. You can find the icon to create masks at the bottom of the Layers panel. So this is our mask icon right here. Whenever you add a layer mask, you can then hide or show the entire layer, or you can create a mask of a selection or transparency. If you want to hide parts of the layer, you'll paint on the mask and reveal the layers beneath it. To add a mask that shows or hides an entire layer, make sure to first go to Select, Deselect to make sure there's nothing selected on the layer. We didn't have any selections, so this was grayed out, but it's always a good idea to check before you start. Now go to the Layers panel and select the layer or group of layers that you want to add the mask to. I'd like to add it to layer 2, so that's highlighted as my active layer. Next, to create a mask that reveals the entire layer, click the Add Layer Mask button. Or if you prefer, you can also go up to Layer, Layer Mask, and Reveal All. Right now that's grayed out because we already have our layer mask, but if you didn't have one, that option would be available. Or if you wanted to hide the entire layer, you would go to Layer, Layer Mask, and Hide All. You can see here that the layer is hidden and it's revealed the layer below it. Now, if you wanted to add a layer mask that hides part of a layer, you'd first select the layer or group in the Layers panel. Next, you would select an area of the image using a selection tool. So, if I decided I didn't really like this flower here, and I wondered what it would look like if I put those flowers in instead, I might select that portion of the image. I've got my lasso tool. I'm going to select that whole bottom corner. You can see it's now selected. Then I'm going to click on the Layers Mask button. Then I want to hide this portion of the layer. So I'm going to go up to Layer, Layer Mask, and Hide Selection. Now you can see the area that I've selected is hidden, showing through to the layer below. Obviously this isn't a perfect image merge here, but that's where I would use the tools that we learned about in previous lessons to blend that in and make it look the way I wanted it to. But using the layer mask to hide a portion of the layer gives me a good idea of how I want it to look, and I could even go in and move the bottom layer around from there to position things the way I wanted to. So it's a useful tool. And in some cases you might want to apply your layer mask to another layer. That's really easy. All you have to do is click the layer mask and move it, and it automatically applies it to that other layer. If you want to edit a layer mask, select the layer in the Layers panel. Next, click the mask thumbnail, which is right here. You can see the little bounding box changes between whether you have your layer selected or your mask. So if you're working with your mask, make sure that that is selected first. If you want to subtract from the mask and reveal the layer, you would paint the mask with white using the brush tool. So I'm going to change my color to white, and then I can subtract from that mask if I didn't want all of that in there. Or if I've gotten rid of just a little too much, I can switch back to black, and that will let me add more of that mask back in and cover up more of the areas. You can also adjust the opacity or the edges of a mask. The Masks panel that was available in previous versions of Photoshop is now gone, but instead the Properties panel replaces this panel as well as a few others. You can use the Properties panel to adjust the opacity or edges of a mask. So to access that, go up to Window, Properties. So you can see this window opens and it has our layer mask. You can use the Density slider to adjust the opacity. If it's at 100%, that means the mask is opaque. More of the mask becomes visible as you lower it. So you can see I've got it set to about 50% here, and you can see that we can see through that mask. Now if you want to feather the mask edges, drag the feather slider. The higher the percentage the feathering, the more the edges are feathered, as shown here. You can see our edges are feathering. And you would use these same steps to feather or change the opacity for a vector mask, which we'll learn about now. So to add a vector mask, these are created with the pen or shape tools. If you want to add a vector mask that shows or hides a layer, go to the Layers panel and select the layer you want to add the vector mask to. So if we wanted to add a vector mask to this layer, I'm going to delete our other masks first. And then we're going to go up to Layer, Vector Mask, and you can do Reveal All or Hide All, and it will create your mask. Now if you want to create a vector mask to show contents of a shape, you would use the pen or shape tool to draw a path. If you want to create a path with the shape tool, click the paths icon in the options bar for the shape tool. But for our example, we're going to use the pen tool to draw our shape. So I'm just going to draw a little shape here. And you can see that it's drawn our shape, and it's using that layer mask to hide that portion of the layer. And since we don't have anything solid there, it's just giving us a clear background. Now if I decide I don't want that there and I want to delete a mask, again as I showed before, click on that mask, drag it to the trash can. It'll ask you if you want to delete the mask, click OK, and then it is gone. Now in Photoshop CS6, you can also use a powerful feature known as Quick Masks. Quick Mask allows you to quickly and easily select certain portions of an image to prevent it from being edited. So we're going to look at how that works. So this is our Quick Mask button down in the toolbar. I'm not going to click on it just yet, but I just want you to notice where it's located. Now go up and select your rectangular marquee tool. We're simply using the marquee tool to select the portion of our image we want to mask. You can use any of the marquee tools, the lasso tool, the paintbrush tool, or even the pen tool to use the Quick Mask feature. We'll show you how in a minute. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So what I want to do here is use the Quick Mask tool to isolate this little prairie dog, and then add an artistic effect to the background. First we need to check and make sure our layer is not locked, because if it's locked we won't be able to work with it. You can see that ours is. So you'll have to unlock it first. To unlock it, just double click. You can enter a new name or just click OK and that will unlock the layer. Now as we stated, you can use any selection tool to select the item you'd like to isolate. We're just going to use the rectangular marquee and drag it around our little prairie dog here. And we'll be using the brush tool to fine-tune our selection. Now click on the Quick Mask button. You can see that our image now has red outside of the area that we selected. And these red areas represent the portion of the image that won't be edited. As you can see, the marquee tool selected too much of the background for our purposes, because remember, I wanted to isolate just the prairie dog. But that's okay, because this is easily fixed with the paintbrush tool. So we'll select that. Now you'll notice the color box at the bottom of our toolbar has black and white as the only colors available. With the black selected, you'll be able to use the paintbrush tool to remove areas from the selection, and the white is to add areas to the selection. This feature makes it really easy to correct mistakes if you get a little bit overzealous with the paintbrush tool. You would just click the little two-headed arrow to switch between the two colors. So I'm going to go ahead and use my paintbrush tool to completely isolate my little prairie dog here. And if I was spending a little more time on this, I could be more exact. But for now, we're just going to give him a rough overlay here. There, so more or less our prairie dog is isolated now. Now click on the quick mask icon again. You'll see that the prairie dog is now selected. But also remember, the prairie dog's selected, but he's not the one we want to edit. We want to edit our background. So we'll go up to Select, Inverse. This reverses your selection, so now the background is selected, but the prairie dog is not. Now we can add a filter or artistic effect. Go ahead and click Filter. So go ahead and click on Filter, and then Photoshop gives you a number of effects to choose from. You can go through and play with each of those and decide which ones you like. I'd like to do an oil paint effect, so I'm going to play with the sliders here a little bit. And use that for my background effect. Click OK. And now this is what our image looks like. And I'm going to deselect that there so you can get a better idea. So our little isolated prairie dog, we now have given him a cool looking background. And also there's a few options you can play around with the quick mask tool. If you double click on that, this dialog box opens. So just play around with those and decide what options work